Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Respected audience, my dearest and nearest students, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Welcome to TESOL Academy Bangladesh. We ensure a holistic, sustainable development of English language. This is Muhammad Abdul Qayyum welcoming you all to my channel TESOL Academy Bangladesh. Today I shall talk about an important issue as to how to learn English language. It's a significant question because some of my students frequently ask me this question: Sir, how should we learn English language? And I have taken the question into my consideration. I've thought a lot about the question: how should we learn English language? And of course, I shall give you the answer of this question in details. But before that, we need to know why this question has been created, why this question has been made. Why this question has taken place? What are the factors working behind this question? What are the reasons working behind this question, which are very important for us to know? The reasons might be many. Now, let's mention a few. One of the reasons might be that we are not satisfied with our current method that we follow to learn English language. Now, what's the name of the current method that we follow to learn English language? The name of the current method that we follow to learn English language is CLT, meaning communicative language teaching. In this method, we need to follow games, group works, peer works, but unfortunately in my country these options are not applicable, or we don't apply these options. For example, games, group works, peer works, we don't do these applications, techniques, strategies, because culturally we are not switchable for applying these techniques, strategies to develop English language. There might be some other reasons as a result of which we are not satisfied with CLT. Maybe cultural problem, maybe socio-cultural development, maybe socio-economic development, among others. Whatever the reasons might be, the result is gruesome, the result is terrible, horrible, I should say, after following this method. We are not developing the language in true sense. We've been lagging behind in many aspects in terms of developing English language. The result of learning English language following CLT is not satisfactory. If we analyze some statistics in terms of the result of following CLT method in Bangladesh currently, we shall see that the picture is horrible, terrible. For example, if we take a look at the result of Dhaka University admission test in the Department of English in 2014, we shall see that only two students were allowed to get themselves admitted at the in the Department of English. Now the question is why only two students were eligible to get themselves admitted in the Department of English at Dhaka University. There were tens of thousands of millions of students, and all the students had some qualifications, some fixed, intended, required qualifications to fight for the admission test. They completed their SSC HSC examination, and of course they secured some expected scores in SSC and HSC examinations, but unfortunately they could not come up with a success in terms of Dhaka University admission test. Why? There may be many reasons. It's not possible for me to mention all the reasons. I shall try to mention a few. Number one could be they followed a structural method. In addition, if they were supposed to follow CLT method, they could not follow the CLT method properly. In addition, they studied English for today, and some of the passages were scene comprehensions. In the world, there is no any scene comprehension. In terms of reading test, there is no any comprehension which is seen. But unfortunately, in my country, some comprehensions are seen. I mean, some comprehension come from English for Today book. I meant to say they take the preparation on limited resources, on limited materials. As a consequence, it becomes almost impossible for them to take any question if the question is based on materials which are not known to them. I meant to say, in novel contexts, in new situations, in new circumstances, in new questions, they are not able to tackle. Because they've studied limited known materials, and they studied these known materials in such a way that it becomes almost impossible for them to tackle any new situation. Anyway, now I shall try to see some method that were applicable in previous times across the centuries. First of all, people followed grammar translation method in 16th century. The main procedure to learn second language was two-way translation in grammar translation method from native language to target language, from target language to native language. But in course of time, it was found that this method was not fruitful, effective to develop English language, to develop second language. As a consequence, eventually, people no longer liked these methods and they looked for new method. As a consequence, direct method, namely natural method, came into being. In this method, no translation was allowed. In previous method, in grammar translation method, we saw that two-way translation was main way to develop second language. But in direct method, in natural method, no translation was allowed. Totally different. In grammar translation method, language one was allowed to use. However, in direct method, language one, mother tongue, is not allowed to use. In this method, the strategies include demonstration, visual aids, pictures, or pantomime, vocabulary through real-life objects. Some gestures, postures. In this method, people followed natural method. Now, what do we mean by natural method? Natural method is the way a child learns a language, develops a language. If we take a look at a child and observe how the child learns the language, we shall see that first of all she or he picks some words, baba, ma, dada, papa, ma, for example. I mean to say my focus is try to understand the child picks words, not the structures, because it's not possible for the child to pick the structures because structures are difficult. In contrast, pick up word is easy. Therefore, a child picks words first, not the structures. Anyway, direct method followed natural method to develop second language. Acquisition. The way mother tongue is developed. When we develop mother tongue, we don't follow any structure first, but we ultimately develop a language. Next came audiolingual method. In this method, new vocabulary and structures are presented through dialogues. It was mainly oral based approach, drilling, imitation, repetition were the strategies to develop second language. Afterwards, silent way came into being. In this method, movements, gestures, postures, wooden rods were used to develop English language, second language. Afterwards, suggestopedia. In this method, the instructor or instructors use soft music, comfortable environment, so that the learners don't face anxiety. And eventually, CLT was followed by the people. We see that in course of times, in course of centuries, we followed lots of methods, but unfortunately we are not satisfied with the methods. What are the reasons? Of course, these methods have got some weaknesses. As a consequence, one after another, we change the methods. We change the methods. The methods I've mentioned by now must have some weaknesses. As a consequence, one after another, we change from one method to another. For example, from grammar translation method to direct method. Anyway, our question was, how should we learn English language? It was our question, main question, focusing question, and I need to give you the answer in details. Take a look at the answer. The easiest method to learn English language, the combination of lexical, structural and functional approach. Now some of you might raise questions. How are you sure that these methods will work better compared to the methods that we followed, that we've come through over the decades, over the centuries? Yes, I have got many evidences to support my theory. First of all, let's explain my theory. First of all, we shall learn a word, then we shall put this word into a structure, and then we shall use this structure in our social context. If we can follow this method, we shall be able to ensure a complete sustainable development of English language. Now let's take a look at the evidences. Why we should use vocabulary first to develop English language. See, in modern world, in today's world, the most prominent, eminent, famous linguistic is Noam Chomsky. In addition, another linguist is Stephen Krashen. They both support vocabulary to develop English language. They propose, they say that if we want to develop English language, we should follow the way A child follows. A child follows vocabulary first. A child at first picks a word, not the structures. He or she doesn't know about any structures, but he develops a language. In addition, Michael Lewis and his Prabhu also supported the same notion. I mean, we should learn English language, we should develop English language using vocabulary. Now, once again, you might raise many questions. Sir, how are you sure that vocabulary will help us to develop English language? Yes, we've got many evidences to support the question. First of all, let's try to take a look at the opinions made by Michael Lewis. Michael Lewis developed the lexical approach, a method of teaching a foreign language in the 1990s. Lexical means words, vocabulary. This method aims at developing learners' proficiency through lexis, words and words combinations. Words. Try to understand, we shall come across some other evidences. At one point, we shall see that language, by language, we mean words. By language, we don't mean structure. A structure gives the language a shape. But if we mean language, we need to mean vocabulary. Vocabulary works as building blocks of a language. The building blocks of a language are lexis, not grammar. Take a look. Building blocks of a language are words, vocabulary, chunks of language, not grammar. In this respect, we've seen that the role of grammar is less important compared to vocabulary. Let's see the function of building blocks, how building blocks work effectively. Some other evidences, Michael Lewis. Language consists of grammaticalized lexis. Try to take a look. Try to take a look. This is the most important point to understand. Language consists of grammaticalized lexis, not lexicalized grammar. Lexis is the core or heart of language. Words, vocabulary is the main component of English language. I mean to say easily, by language, I mean vocabulary. By language, I mean vocabulary. If we want to develop a language, we must address vocabulary first, because by language, we mean vocabulary. Language means vocabulary. Language means vocabulary. And at the same time, let me tell you, in entire world, a structural syllabus, a structural method is dominating. But unfortunately, you see, if you think very deeply, clearly, you will be able to understand easily. Structures can never be the language. Structures give the language a proper shape. But if we mean language, we need to mean vocabulary. I mean, vocabulary is the language. Vocabulary is the language. Vocabulary is the language. The basis of language is lexis, not grammar. Lexis can influence, dominate, or dominates grammar. In contrast, grammar cannot dominate language, lexis. But unfortunately, even though language, vocabulary means language, even though vocabulary means language, vocabulary is the main component of English language, of any language. Vocabulary is the heart of language. Vocabulary is the main pillar of a language. We don't use vocabulary that way. We've kept this vocabulary like a Cinderella. Some other evidences. Vocabulary has a far more central role in the organization of language and the creation of meaning than was generally previously conceived. These linguists have proved that this method is more effective and easily applicable to students at college level than a structural method. Learning language through vocabulary is more effective compared to a structural method, as I told you earlier. Because a structural method might not give more effective results because structures are never the language. Structures give proper shape to the language. It is the responsibility of the structures to give the language a proper shape. It's not the responsibility of the structures to mean language. If we want to mean language, we have to mean vocabulary, because vocabulary is the main part of language. They have strongly proved the importance of word combination patterns in language and their use in teaching and learning a language. Learners can learn language easily using this method, using vocabulary, because vocabulary is the language. Vocabulary is the language. Language form is best learned when the learner's attention is focused on meaning. What I've been talking about for the last few minutes. Vocabulary. A language can be learned more if we follow vocabulary first. If we treat vocabulary as the central pillar of the language. Now let's see some demonstrations. Take a look at a structure, the function of a structure. A bird. Suppose somebody knows the structure but does not know, unfortunately, vocabulary. Try to take a look at the skeleton of bird. In contrast, try to take a look at the vocabulary. It's a bird, a meaningful, beautiful sentence, because this one knows vocabulary. It is a bird. See how without structure we can complete function. Have you done the task? Done. What is it? Football. See, in these two examples, we did not use any structure in terms of answers, but we've completely conveyed the meaning. Functions have been completely done. Now, some of you might raise questions are how should we learn vocabulary? Because in English language there are tens of thousands of vocabulary. Yes, of course, there are some scientific, important, interesting method to learn vocabulary. Everywhere in the world you shall see that vocabulary is taught in isolated situation. No, this is not the way. This is not the proper way. If we want to learn vocabulary, we need to maintain some procedures. See, and if we try to learn English language in isolated contexts, this learning might not be effective. We need to follow a chain, a sequence in terms of learning English language. And in terms of learning vocabulary, we need to maintain some interesting, effective scientific procedure. We need to take a word and at the same time we need to have a picture so that we can understand the meaning of the words easily. And we need to have the synonyms at the same place. And of course at the same time we need to have the meaning in language one, in native language, because native language plays a significant role in developing second language. And at the same time in another column we need to have antonyms, all the antonyms along with a picture, because picture helps us to understand the meaning. At the same time we need to have Bengali meaning, language one meaning in another column. Now we need to mere learning these vocabulary is not enough. We need to understand their contextual examples. Contextual examples, contextual examples, contextual examples are very important. Every word has a context. Whenever we learn the word, we need to understand the context of that particular word. Abandon, relinquish, resign, discontinue, abdicate, evacuate, waive, forgo, leave, quit, discard, desert. If we analyze each and every word, we shall see there is affinity among the words, and of course there must be the amenity among the words because they are the synonyms. But we need to understand the word very critically. Relinquish, পরিত্যাগ করা, resign. We say he resigns from his job. I mean he has left the job. Discontinue. He no longer does the job. Abdicate. He abdicates his friend in danger, which is never expected. Evacuate. We know the word evacuation. Waive. We know the word waive because it is related to reduce, leave some fees, for example. We know that some private universities give waiver to the students. The students have the scope to enjoy waive based on some conditions. Leave, quit, discard, desert, the synonyms. If we analyze each and every word critically, we shall be able to remember the meanings of the words for a longer period of time. We need to read the words critically, very critically. Pursue, we say, we pursue our careers, we pursue our degrees, we chase our dreams, we hunt deers, we prosecute some actions, we follow some rules and regulations, we undertake some responsibilities. Now we shall come across some contextual examples because I told you earlier contextual examples are important for learning vocabulary. He never abandons his dreams, his dream of becoming a banker. He relinquishes all hope as he is pessimistic. Alan forgoes some of his rights, but he need not give up the right of doing something in his life. The conditions of the agreement are waived if both the parties, buyer and seller, agree to. The party decided to abdicate from its role in a coalition government. Abdicate. Give up. Quit. The seamen evacuate the ship as soon as they discover it is drowning. খালি করে দেয়া. The philanthropist people don't desert their friends in difficult times. Hassan is discarded by his brothers because he wants to become a doctor and his brothers want him to take family business in Dhaka. I mean to say, cultures, contexts help to develop English language, second language. Now it's your homework. You will try to follow the same procedure as I followed. You will take the word abate and you will find the synonyms along with a picture related to it, and at the same time you will try to find language one meaning. At the same time you will try to find the antonyms